Hey, so before the video starts, I wanted to give a quick warning that I'm going to be delving heavily into spoilers for Convergence's story, as well as a bit of Mage Seeker too. If you have any interest in experiencing these games for yourself or haven't finished playing them, I would heavily recommend clicking off for now and coming back later so you don't get spoiled. Or don't, I'm not your dad, you can make your own choices. So, Riot Forge has been on quite a roll lately, starting off strong with The Ruined King, a fun RPG adventure game that expanded more on the story of Bilgewater, the Shadow Isles, and the very character the game is named after, Viego, in addition to giving some serious development to its cast of characters and forging new strong connections between them. Well, most of them. Then, about a month ago, we had Mage Seeker, which, much like the Ruined King, explored more of the setting of Runeterra through expanding upon the Mage Rebellion in Demacia, as well as thoroughly exploring Silas's character by challenging him and his ideals. And while I do have a few issues with Mage Seeker's narrative, and I feel they softened Silas's character to a degree, it all still works for the most part. Even if he's been changed a little, Silas still maintains many of the aspects presented in the Lux comic and the Recruit short story. Well, kinda, because the Recruit short story never really happens in Mage Seeker. In fact, I don't even know if that's even canon anymore, so... Anyways, now we have Convergence, a League of Legends story focused on Echo and the city of Zaun, with champions from both Piltover and Zaun making appearances as well, and I was pretty hyped for it. I like Zaun, Warwick, Jinx, Camille, and I especially like Echo, though I sadly didn't have the time to play the game myself due to, well, lack of funds.
Spare change. Spare change, ma'am.
Luckily, I was still able to catch a video showing its story in its entirety, which is what I was really interested in, and I wasn't that impressed. Echo was okay for the most part. His story involving his future self and grappling with the means to protect Zaun was interesting, though it did feel a bit clunky at times.
You wanted me to kill Warwick!
Look, I'm not the monster here.
You could have fooled me.
Listen to me. There are things that you will have to do to be the person Zaun needs you to be.
I don't know what happens in the future, but I never want to be you.
Warwick and Jinx were just kinda there. They didn't really contribute much in terms of the narrative, and honestly you could have just cut them and not lose anything. But there is one character I've yet to mention, a character I firmly believe was completely out of character for a majority of Convergence's narrative, and is the subject matter of this video, and that character is Camille. Allow me to give a bit of background of the Steel Shadow to explain why I'm throwing out this accusation with such confidence. Camille Pharos is the principal intelligencer of Clan Pharos, one of the most powerful and influential clans in all of Piltover. She works to maintain order within Piltover and Zaun, and has even augmented her body with hex tech to better perform her duty in service of her family. To do this, she had to undergo a surgery that had stripped away most of her human body, including her heart. But flesh was not the only thing she had sacrificed for this transformation, for Camille had been in a relationship with the very man who would be operating on her, a crystallographer by the name of Hakam Nadiri. The two were very much in love, and Hakam had even proposed to Camille and even urged her to run away with him, leaving her conflicted between love and duty. Though thanks to the influence of her brother, Camille chose to remain with her family and ended her relationship with Hakam, no longer wanting herself to be distracted from her responsibilities as the sword and shield of Clan Pharos. Love is the death of duty, as they say. With her body enhanced to near superhuman capabilities, Camille conducts her task as her family's intelligencer with precise and deadly efficiency to maintain the status quo. And she's not that nice about it either.
Know your place. Progress trumps suffering. Hostility works if courtesy fails. Your feeble efforts are disappointing.
Fuck you! Hey!
One of the most defining aspects about Camille's character is just how ruthless, cold, and calculating she can be in her job. She represses any and all emotion because it would simply interfere in her work, and while there are moments that hint she still has some traces of her humanity, these moments are few and far between due to her valuing practicality over human emotion, because she believes human emotion is unnecessary in her line of work. Now allow me to provide you a list to show you just how ruthless Camille can be. She killed a chem baron in front of his crying fiancée so she could stop him from marrying his way into Piltover's high society. Granted, she claims that he was only using her to raise his own status, but we don't really know if this is true since the story is told through her perspective. She is hinted to be involved in the death of Vi's parents.
Ever wonder how you became an orphan?
And is confirmed to have a hand in the death of Renata Glask's parents.
2 alchemists were murdered over 30 years ago, Camille. Do you remember them?
And mind you, they were simply providing medical services to the people of Zon and were only executed because the Piltover elites felt their bottom line was being threatened. And while she does work to keep order in Zon and Piltover, these efforts are to preserve the state of things between these cities, keeping Piltover rich and powerful with their family at the top, while Zon remains a polluted, criminal-infested dreg. In fact, it's because of her family making things like synthetic hextech crystals that Zon suffers more, because it's believed the production of these crystals are a heavy contributor to the Zon Grey, which leaves the city even more polluted. Camille, I would consider, is the perfect example of lawful evil. She upholds order in both cities through ruthless means and doesn't seem to care that this order causes others to suffer. But here's the funny thing about that. Despite me listing off most of the horrible shit she's done, Camille is still interesting and I still like her a lot as a character. A character doesn't have to be a good or moral person to be engaging. League is rife with characters that are basically war criminals, and they still manage to make them interesting and compelling. One of my favorite characters, and one I'd argue is probably one of the best written in the whole franchise, has to be Silco from Arcane, because while he does have moments of compassion and showing genuine love to those he cares for, he's still a ruthless, cutthroat drug lord who isn't afraid to cross some pretty grim lines to achieve his goal.
Oops. Oh, so sorry. Accidents happen.
He is an interesting and compelling character who is a bad person, and I would classify Camille in the same category, and that's fine. She works as a villain, serving as a possible foil for the more morally good characters in both Zon and Piltover. Yet in Convergence, it seems like most of these characteristics were just removed. I wouldn't even say they softened her like Silas in Mageseeker or Pike in The Ruined King. It just feels like the writers just snapped their fingers and suddenly Camille is just more friendly, kinder, and kinda dumb in some parts, even if everything prior to Convergence says otherwise. The issues start already when, before her boss fight, she notes that a device Echo uses for his Zero Driver, the machine that allows him to go through time, once belonged to the Pharaoh's clan, and they were aware he was using it because they keep track of everything going in and out of their laboratories. When asked why she didn't come after him sooner, she just says he's been a minor distraction, which, okay, a bit weird that Camille would be so quick to dismiss the boy who could time travel, but hey, what do I know? I have the brain capacity of a lizard. After her boss fight, Future Echo comes along to clear things up and the three form an alliance to deal with the bigger threat. And that's fine. I can buy her working with the Echoes because of the threat of the Syntixi and the war Future Echo talks about. I mean, the more likely scenario is that with the power and influence her family holds, she could resolve this issue herself, but I can suspend my disbelief to some degree. It's not like this is an impossible scenario, especially since the threat of the Syntixi do disrupt the order she wishes to preserve in both Zon and Piltover, though Echo is critical of wanting to work with Camille and is initially wary of her.
Sargon asked if I was working with Clan Pharaohs, and now I guess I am. I don't like where this is going. Guess I could catch up on a few things while Future Echo looks for the chain crawler. Maybe my friends can tell me more about Camille too. I just don't trust her. And Zon, she's more of a monster. Like in the nursery rhyme.
I wasn't aware there was one.
Keep your fingers out of pockets, keep your fingers off the green, else a lady with stilettos will come and slice them clean.
which makes sense given her reputation. Later on in the story, Camille makes another appearance during the fight between Echo and Jinx, and I was mostly fine with her helping Echo in this fight, though I do find it a bit strange that Echo had to go back in time to warn her about being kicked by Jinx. I mean, she's a super enhanced cyborg. What is Jinx going to do to her? This isn't like Arcane, where she's juiced up on Shimmer. This version of Jinx is just a normal person, and would hardly be a threat to someone like Camille. But things start to fall apart once future Echo reveals his plan to prevent this future war is to essentially blow up all the Syntixian Hex tech, not caring at all about the thousands of Zonites and Piltovans he'll kill in the collateral. It's at this point I'm wondering why she isn't just taking the opportunity to remove future Echo by killing regular Echo. You can't even argue that's not how time travel works in this story, because future Echo doesn't seem to think so, given they lured him out by having regular Echo make him think he was in danger of getting killed by Camille.
Future Echo? I'm at the Finlox Theater and Camille tracked me down. She's angry about the Syntixi. She's blaming me for letting the Syntixi go. Our blades are 2 steps away. What's going on here?
It's as we approach the third act that Camille really starts to act super out of character. Instead of searching through the city herself and trying to find out where future Echo has run off to, something she could easily do given her track record of hunting her targets, she instead joins Echo in going back to his hideout and working together with him to try and piece together where future Echo went. Which, that's fine I guess, but she's uncharacteristically relaxed about the situation, even finding some amusement in being invited to his hideout and calling it a clubhouse.
All right. I accept your invitation.
Though before they even reach the hideout, Echo's like, oh yeah, I know we're trying to save the city and all, but can I check on some friends real quick? And Camille just responds to this with, yeah, sure, I'll just be here checking out the vendors. And I'm honestly just baffled by this decision, because Camille would never act like that. She would want to be prioritizing the mission. Camille wouldn't give a shit about Echo's friends. These would be the very same distractions that she herself would not entertain, and either remind Echo of that or just go off without him. Nor can I imagine her just chilling out and talking with Zonites either. Last I checked, she didn't appear to care that much for Zon or its people outside of keeping them in their lane. But no, she just seems completely okay with the matter, and Echo later finds her talking with Corin Revik, that's Oriana's dad by the way, and again being surprisingly nice, saying things like, I hope to see your creations back in Piltover again someday, Mr. Revik, and Corin believing Oriana would love to meet her one day, which I personally found hilarious when you consider some of the things Camille says to Oriana in League of Legends. There's also this whole bit where Echo says he's learning not to judge people so harshly, reflecting back on how he had at first been wary and almost hostile towards Camille. And while I do appreciate the message they're conveying, that you shouldn't be so quick to judge others and that you can find help from people vastly different from yourself, I don't think Camille was the best fit for this, given her background. Again, Camille has committed some pretty heinous acts during her time as her family's intelligencer, and while the story has portrayed her as a far more kind and helpful person, that suddenly doesn't erase her character from before, and using her for this lesson Echo needed to learn in his story just doesn't feel right, especially when there are far more morally good Piltover characters he could have used instead to make this work. But Skaroi, they look so cool working together. Yeah, they certainly do look cool together, though it's incredibly lame that instead of trying to have Echo deal with the real Camille and having them overcome their differences, they just basically changed her character to make her more fitting for this story. I'm sorry, but Echo had every right to be fearful and critical of working with her given how she is, because she is a cold and callous assassin who serves as a weapon for the Piltover elite. If these two were to work under any circumstance, Camille should be solely using Echo to achieve her end goal of maintaining order and being strictly professional, but no, it seems the heartless cyborg lady has suddenly grown a heart and is now Echo's mom friend. Convergence highlights this even further in the end. After future Echo sacrifices himself to get rid of the Syntixi, Camille comforts Echo?
Hey yo, what the fuck?
Now, like I said before, Camille does have small moments of showing her humanity, but remember, these are brief and fleeting because she constantly tries to repress her emotions and focus on being pragmatic, to appear as that emotionless machine that acts as the sword and shield of her family, the enforcer of order in Zon and Piltover. I honestly think this moment could still work with Camille if she had been developed to become more in touch with her humanity, or they had simply had her act more like how she is in League of Legends, and have having this be a mask-off moment where she shows her softer side. But sadly, Convergence doesn't do either. This is just how this Camille is, and I couldn't be more disappointed in her portrayal in this story. Now, I know I'm kinda taking the piss out of Convergence with this video, but I want to make it clear I'm only covering one aspect about the game's narrative. The game still looks like a lot of fun, and I appreciate its existence, even if I feel it dropped the ball super hard on Camille, because I want Riot Forge to succeed and to continue expanding upon this universe even further with more games that explore the setting and characters. This was just a fumble, and hopefully something they will put more care into with future releases. Anyways, that's all I have to say about Convergence. Bye-bye.